And if you have questions, please ask in the questions box. This is me, and I've been with Intuit for a while now, I think going on 15 years in April. And also do the QBO show with Stacy Kildall. It's a bi-weekly show, and it's a podcast, so you can download that and find out more at radiofreeqb.com. As well, you can view the QuickBooks Matrix by clicking that link too when you download the deck, and it compares feature sets across the QuickBooks ecosystem, mainly Pro, Premier, the Accountant Editions, Enterprise, Essentials, and Plus. Don't do much with Simple Start. You probably don't either. And I think there's a self-employed column in there, but it's mostly no. I mean, self-employed is just really bank, credit card feed, few reports, but it could be helpful for 1099 contractors. It's just Schedule C category, so it's not full-on double entry accounting. But if I'm a musician gigging around, Uber driver, or whatever, self-employed can be really advantageous. Now, we are going to be in, this is what we're going to focus on today. Tomorrow's a service-based business, heavier on job costs and things like that. Today's product-based. We're going to look at item-based settings and types, what you have to turn on for inventory. I'll be in QBO Plus, obviously. Two-sided items, we'll just quickly go through that. Categories, making quantity adjustments, value adjustments, the quantity pop-up on sales forms, and we're just going to go in a bunch of transaction activity. Cost of goods sold, it's debited when you sell it. Related reporting, recurring transactions, and some automation there. We'll go into a file that has payments turned on, right? So sometimes you might be selling products and it's a monthly subscription. There's that too. And then the phone app. I was doing sales tax for a while with this and the new sales tax module, but it's in new QBOs because there's some item-based settings there, but I decided today just to replace it with the phone app because you might be doing some selling, product-based businesses might be doing some selling on the phone app, so we should look at that quick. But if you really want to see the new sales tax module, let me know, right? But it should go a full hour today. Now, when I am demoing, I'm using QBO Plus because to me that's the most, the feature set is most comparative to QuickBooks Pro. So if you're used to desktop, most of your clients are probably on that, and QBO Plus will compare with that for the most part. Neither Pro or QBO Plus have build assemblies, or now Pro has unit of measure tracking, but just a single unit of measure tracking. You need Premier Enterprise for multi-unit of measure tracking. Plus doesn't have the unit of measure tracking. It doesn't have build assemblies. Pro does not have sales order fulfillment workflow, neither does Plus, right? So those key things that Pro can't do, Plus can't do either, or I should maybe say that in a backwards way. Plus can't do those things, neither can Pro except for the single unit of measure, right? But outside of that, two-sided items, inventory. Now, Pro is definitely an average cost inventory valuation where QBO Plus is first in, first out. But if you have a client coming from Pro or you're used to QuickBooks Pro, then Plus is most probably what your clients are using. So same file I always use, Cloud Collaboration LLC. Sometimes I'll dive into my pet pause file. I might do that. But I'm going to go to the gear icon and accountant settings to start. Then we'll go to the products and services list. Okay, way less settings to consider with inventory and item tracking than, say, job costing. However, some things to consider, and we should look at also customizing sales forms because you're going to have clients that sell products with invoices or sales receipts. And you can customize sales receipts, invoices, and estimates. We will not be tackling estimates today because you're probably not doing a lot of that for product-based businesses. They might be using a delayed charge or something. That's kind of a workaround for a sales order, but I still can't track current availability. Like Pro, again, it's like, what quantity do I have? What quantity do I not have? Premier and Enterprise, and then some third-party apps can tell you how much quantity you can promise to somebody else based on sales orders and purchase orders, stuff coming in. So like that visibility is great. And by the way, if you need to know those third parties that I suggest, SOS Inventory is probably my favorite for, well, I have a client on Enterprise with the AI, the advanced inventory, or I have a client using Premier Manufacturing Wholesale. They want to go to QBO Plus for mobility or whatever the reason is. What third-party app can fill that feature void, and that's SOS Inventory, right? So there's that one. There's also Stitch Labs. There's Deer Inventory. Deer Inventory is great for restaurants, foodstuffs, if you will, those things. I don't mean dear inventory for point of sale, but I mean like tracking food, and it's just much more sophisticated need. So dear inventory is great. But SOS inventory I find to be the most affordable. It's one of the oldest apps. I think the very first one that integrated with QBO. It used to be called OE Companion. So now it's been SOS for as long as I can remember, at least 09 or something. All right. So products and services. When you go to the sales setting, gear icon, accountant settings, this is I liken to edit preferences. You have this track inventory quantity on hand. This turns on first in, first out inventory. That's really it. You know, you're probably not doing any progress invoicing for product-based business because you're not starting with an estimate in most cases. Now, so know that about the products and services. This online delivery for invoicing, I usually keep it like this. You know, you might want to show full details in the email. I typically just do a summary. But when I am invoicing, I can send, even if I don't have payments turned on, and we'll go over that a little bit later on. When I'm sending, because there's this option when you save an invoice, right? It says save and send link. So you can send them a link or whatever. Once you send it to them by email, there's an option that they can click pay now, or just online invoicing, they can see the invoice online on the web. And it tracks status too in the sales center. We should look at that too. But online delivery, I usually keep it like this, right? So those options are relatable. If we just stay in the sales setting itself, you might have some of these things too, right? Custom fields. In QBO, I think one gap different from even QuickBooks Pro is the lack of custom fields at the item level or the customer or vendor level. There are 3 custom fields on sales forms, and you can make them internal or public. But I have, you know, there's 3 custom fields at the top part of the form, but it can be helpful for filtering reports. Okay, so there's that. They're in the source area, so you got to, you know, some reports that only look at summary information will see it. Some that look at just detail will not. But still, it's helpful. You can add them as columns and filter reports by. So there are custom fields, but they're only at the sales transaction level. So invoice, sales receipt, and estimate. Yes, you can turn on custom transaction numbers. What's this? That just means if you want to control the number field on the invoice or sales receipt. All right, and then we'll still increment it, but you might have an alphanumeric setting or something like that. So that's what that is. If not, you just want QBO to do it and lock it in, then turn that off. Service date, probably not going to do much here, but product-based businesses will do repair and other things like that, maintenance. So you might, this adds this as a column to the invoice. Discount deposit, so take a discount. Deposit be like an upfront liability. And we even do, this is new, I'll turn that on, but tips, gratuity is new. So we'll go into the form and look at that. So you can track tips and gratuity, and that's really interesting to me. That must have gotten plugged in recently, you know, even as of last night. Anyway, customize the way forms look. Let's go in there quickly because there's some important stuff to consider. You can create invoices, estimates, and sales receipts. You can customize those, and I can even import a style, like from a Word doc, a .docx file. It has to be an invoice, but I can import one. This doesn't add any other fields, right? You're still using the fields or the limitations we have in customizing forms in QBO at large. Still, you might have something already formatted, and it's a lot easier than recreating it. But I'm going to go to like my master invoice here, and you can do this with a sales receipt as well. This is what the form customization looks like, right? You have the ability to choose a particular template of 5 options. The Airy is typically what we add most new stuff in product to. So I usually leave it to Airy, but you could do modern, fresh, bold. I mean, it's just a little different. If you look over on the right, it's kind of a layout designer. I mean, I can't really move it around much, but we'll get there. But, you know, bold, I kind of like bold, or fresh, or bold, or friendly. So they can have, you know, that. Logo edits. I can add a different logo. However, this does update the logo of the company. So I usually just leave the one. Color, font, right? And these would be the options, 4 options. Courier, Helvetica, whatever, and the other one, right? And then, of course, these 2. Now, content is where you get into how do I impact the sections of the form. Click the little pencil icon over in the, we'll call it the layout designer, I guess. And over here, where I can have a different, have the business name, right? Address, website, form names, which you can change the name, call it something else, donation, right? If it's a nonprofit, this is where you go and do this, right? Or maybe this would be for donations, and this would be for, I forget how you guys do that. Form numbers, custom transaction numbers, right? We got that there. Now, scroll down to custom fields. This is where you can impact them, right? Now, I can't really change where they are on the top part or the source area. But still, we hide some of this stuff. Now, this one, the second pencil icon when customizing a form, I find is the most effective because it's impacting columns, right? And I like showing on the invoice the account summary. It's like puts on statement information on the invoice too that I'm sending. So balance forward, new charges, total amount due will be up top. You might not want it, so uncheck it. But I usually leave it because it's a statement invoice in one for the most part. I mean, I think statement can do a little better, but I can customize this better than a statement. So I usually put the account summary up there. Date, product, include description or category. We'll talk about categories in a sec. Sometimes I'll just put description, including quantity and rate together, or I can turn quantity and rate on as its own column. And then I have the amount, right? This is customer facing. On the screen, it's still going to look like on the screen. But what is my customer going to see when I invoice it to them or they click the link or I send them the link, right? And then you want to show more activity options. This is really buried. This blue link at the bottom. Okay, hopefully you guys are seeing that. Where I can group activity by day, week, month, type. That might really help if they're doing selling periodic things to the same customers. You can group it differently. Or group it by type, which is my default that I use. But again, that's you. That's me. Subtotal groups you can do. You can collapse activity rows as well. And the show progress invoice, that's just if you're going to invoice progressively against an estimate. I just don't see product-based businesses doing that a whole lot, but it is possible to do that, right? And then you have emails, okay? And then payments. We'll get into payments later, but for this template, what am I going to allow my customers to pay me with? A bank transfer, credit card, or both? Bank transfer takes 5 days to fund, but it's free. Credit card has fees. Right? So customizing forms, you can preview it in a PDF to see what it is, and you'll create several different templates. Sales receipts, invoices, kind of the same thing. If they already have a doc, a Word doc, you can import it, and it's going to be for the estimate. I'm sorry, the invoice. Forgive me, the invoice. But remember, I'm only customizing sales forms. Now, that being said, let me go back to settings. So quick detour there. That's pretty much the sales settings you want to consider, but no, we can now track tips, and we'll look at that. I think that's going to be on a sales receipt, though. It's going to be on a sales receipt. Expenses, if you want to sell purchase items and then resell them, you have to turn at least this checkbox on. Don't worry about tracking expense items by customer. Billable, we'll do that tomorrow, but that's just passing stuff through or doing profitability by. I can even filter a profit and loss and call it a profitability by item report. You can do that, right? Item profitability report would be probably the term we use in desktop. So there is that. But this is the one I typically do for product-based. Show items table on expense and purchase forms. So when we purchase stuff, you have an items table, not just an accounts table. So I can track the cost of that as well. The markup is done in this setting, okay, when you're passing it through. But we'll go over these two boxes tomorrow. We just dive deeper into that with service-based clients and job costing. But show items table on purchase forms, you have that too. And then purchase orders, right here. Right? You do have 3 custom fields on a purchase order, but there are no custom fields or customizing of bills, checks, credit card expenses, just like in Pro. You can't customize those either, right? One thing I just really want are custom fields at the item level because I can put more columns on the invoice or sales receipt to track other things, color, size, etc. Right now I'm using the description field, okay, for the most part. All right, and then advanced, not a whole lot of item-based stuff here. I mean, your product-based businesses use class tracking, my guess. We don't go heavily into that today, but you'll see it on some forms. There is class tracking. There's also location tracking. Location is 1 location per transaction. Class can either be that too or 1 class for each row. Think of a bill in multiple lines. You're tagging a class or a check, etc. Right? Location, though, has the ability to choose different labels. So better for like warehouses, locations, things like that. Although I even got a better workaround for warehousing using categories. All right, so class location, And then the automation, we'll go through here, and then we'll dive into the products and services list. Sometimes you have product-based businesses, and you can invoice for unbilled activity. It's mostly a service-based thing, but still it's in there. Pre-fill forms with previously entered content. That is not just for vendors. Like in desktop, how you can specify just vendors. So when you put in the vendor name, the accounts come over, or what they purchased last time. So you can still do it, but it's also going to impact customers and employees as well. But I have friends in the industry, they turn that one on for sure, just because it's easier to remember, because you're doing a lot more purchase transaction than probably sales entry. Hopefully you can flip it, but automatically apply credits, automatically apply bill payments. That's going to go to the next invoice or the next bill in line. So I usually leave those off till my customer, or client I should say, proves me otherwise. I usually leave them all off till the client proves me all otherwise. And the automatically invoice, that's a global setting. It'll create invoices for any unbilled activity. Now, why would that come into play in a product-based business demo? Well, you do have, let's click done here, a delayed charge form. Right, so you have like the plus sign, right, all the transactions, and we're going to be going through some of these for sure. I'll get to the products and service list soon. But this delayed charge form is a non-posting sales transaction. It'll just hold the charge. See, I have a service date column here. So you might have a product-based business that does, how do I say, they purchase items or something typically. Actually, let me do this one. Yeah, they purchase items, or you did a repair or something, so you can add a service date, and sometimes you can add that column to some sales reports. Could be helpful, right? Now, we'll get to the item list and talk about SKU. Some people use that for a manufacturing part number. But the thing is, the delayed charge is the person called me up. They're going to come in and buy this guitar. However, it's not today, so I don't want to invoice them yet. They're going to pay me later kind of thing. Typically, I might use a sales receipt if they're giving me their money right away, but they're just going to come in and pay me on Saturday. So I want to hold it, but I don't want the AR to start tracking. It's this kind of thing. Typically, you use a delayed charge with service-based workflow, but in product-based, you could do it too. But for me, it's like though it doesn't really help me with current availability, I can hover over and look at delayed charges on a report and see, how many quantity am I promising to these customers? How much do I actually have and what's out on purchase order? So right now, I'm okay to fulfill this like Saturday when they come in. Right? So that current availability you can get close to. It's mostly just pure quantity. Either you have it or don't. Right? But this is an inventory part. We'll get there. But the nice thing about the delayed charge is that I can just go, when you go to an invoice later, they come in later and they're going to pay me in a few weeks. I mean, this one's tough for product-based because typically in this case, I would be doing a sales receipt. They're just coming in and I'm just going to give them a receipt for the $562 they give me, right? However, it's nice to have this because the drawer will open up on the right and I can add this charge to an invoice and then invoice them, right? So delayed charge, product-based might use, particularly if they're doing some repair or maintenance as an arm of their business. Right, so just want to make sure you knew the delayed charge was there and how it integrates with an invoice. All right, I'm going to go to sales and products and services. Right away, you can see I have some low stock. Two low stock, these same two are out of stock as well. Zero quantity, or in the one case, I had like a negative quantity. Not sure how that happened. We don't want to sell negative quantity in QBO, just like you don't want to sell it in QuickBooks Desktop. It really can mess up your valuation, balance sheet, etc. So though it's FIFO here, first in, first out, and average cost in desktop, still bad to sell negative quantity. Now I'm seeing the low stock and the out of stock because there's reorder points. So we're going to drill into those particular items, and we'll use those for my examples today. Purchasing, partial receiving, selling, looking at reporting. We're going to do all that, valuation as we go. But I wanted you to look at my list in general. It's defaulted, and remember the little baby gear icon. So right, we have the big gear icon in the upper right for operational things. That's where I went to get the settings. Manage users, products, another way to get to products and services, budgets, etc. Right? But on every list, pretty much, there's a baby gear icon, even on reports. make sure you turn stuff on here that is impactful for what your client wants to see. In my case, I'm showing the income and expense account for the items, for those items that are either two-sided, right, or have inventory. I do want to see SKU, the type, right? You can even add quantity on purchase order. So you can make this like a list report. And I have the reorder point, quantity on hand, if it's taxable or not, the cost, the sales price. So you have some columns here. And at the bottom of that, you have group by category. Now, category is its own list. Manage categories. Under the drop-down arrow, next to the More tab, you have Run Report, Price Rules, which we'll look at, and then I got categories. Now, I know categories can mean chart of accounts, categories can mean class, right? But categories at the product service list are really the parent-child relationship. Main item, sub-item. And when people convert from desktop, the item hierarchy will come over. You'll have main items, you have a bunch of sub-items, right? And it'll match the hierarchy you had in desktop. You'll be asked, or your client will be asked, if they want to convert from sub-items, the hierarchy there, to categories. It's just a way to, I think it allows me to visually look at my item list better, and I can batch assign items to categories and move them around. Some people use categories for different things, like bins, locations, warehouses, right? Because it's the categories. I can do a search on a sales form by category and see all the items within that category. I can do a search on filter reports by categories. Categories can be really helpful, and people will use it to manipulate other things. And it's just creating a category. You can even have subcategories, right? And then assigning the items to them. So I have about, 11 categories, administrative, bookkeeping, services, construction, and guitars. I'm all over the map. I use this file all the time. Typically, there'd be more consistent categories. And then when you look at the list, it's broken down by administrative, bookkeeping, construction, renovation, guitars, etc., landscaping. I can even filter. Today, we're talking about guitars. So I can filter by the particular category. So I can just look at, the items in this category. I have 100 items, so pretty easy to manage for me. But if you got a couple thousand, then that might be helpful, right? Now, low stock, out of stock. Let's go into the out of stock. And here I have cold beer and gadgets. They are out of stock. Quantity on hand, 0, -25, right? Let's edit this inventory part, because we're talking inventory here today a lot. You can import from Excel. Inventory parts, it's under the gear icon, import data, or it's coming over from desktop, all right? I have the name. You can even attach a picture. SKU, which some people will use for manufacturing part number or other things, because it is a column on a sales form. I think my main contention for QBO, like desktop, is you have so many lists and fields, customer, vendor, items, and all those fields within each record. And what ones show up on the form, what kind of report are you trying to produce, and then backtrack to create and use all these available fields to the best you can to get that report, get that info. Less customization in QBO versus desktop, right? But it's still a similar theory. Category, right? So this is an item that I'm reselling, but class, I can assign a class, a default class that will come up on forms. Quantity or value adjustment, I can literally do an adjustment, and this is its own transaction. So I just want to bring it up to 0. Or I could do a bill or a check or something like that, but I'm just going to say it was, and you choose what type of account you're going to offset it to, right? So this is going to actually debit inventory asset 25 items, right? Just to get me to 0 in credit COGS. Or maybe another account you might like. Maybe you're crediting income or something like that. But anyway, you can make quantity adjustments. They're their own transaction type. Right? And you can do that right by clicking the arrow in the action column as well. There'll be an option in the item, well, for items that you can adjust, inventory items, you can do that. Let's go back into this one. You see now I have 0 quantity on the gadget. Reorder point, That's what puts it into lower out of stock. Notice, inventory parts, just like in desktop, they're going to impact 3 accounts. Inventory asset, revenue, and then I have cost of goods sold. It's just kind of north to south. You're scrolling down as opposed to in desktop where you'd have it kind of the window and information on the left and the right. Okay, so that's the thing. Taxable, regarding sales tax, it will now ask you, for the most part, some of your clients might still have the old sales tax model, but you know what type of category it is and then what you sell. And that does impact the auto calculation of sales tax, right? And then I have price rules, which we're going to go over today as well. Okay? Cost, expense, preferred vendor when you're purchasing from the item list itself. So, inventory parts. Now, for those of you who are not doing inventory, there are non-inventory parts as well, or service items. Okay? And like this appliance item, for example, two-sided. So I have an appliance, sales info, going to services revenue, cost of goods sold. You need QuickBooks Online Plus for two-sided items, double-sided items. All right. So that's, you wouldn't even need to turn inventory on. You just need to make sure that you put the items table on cost forms. And we'll look at that when we do some purchasing. Right? But I'm going to go back to my low stock items and we'll go ahead and purchase both of these. And that's pretty much the items themselves. When you're creating a new item, just so you know, you have 4 types: inventory, non-inventory, service, and bundle within the products and service, right? We're dealing with mostly inventory, non-inventory today. But bundle is also super helpful. I'll try to show that as well in a different file. It is a group item. So bundle inherits the cost and sales price of the component parts. It's not an assembly. You can't build or break it. But the benefit of it, for sure, if you take one thing away, this is really critical because this works for both service and product-based businesses. You can choose not to display the components on the customer-facing document. So it's just a description or how much it is and the total amount, and there will be definitely scenarios where that's key. Contractors do it all the time. That's what they use a group item in desktop for. I can use a bundle here. But it would be similar for product-based businesses, championship packages, like components you're bundling together to sell over a weekend with a price level and a discount and stuff like that. I mean, all that's available in QBO Plus. And we'll try to show that later on today. So I'm going to go ahead and reorder in a batch, even though they're totally different, but just to get this moving along. And we'll say it's from Amazon. Right? So this is a PO. A purchase order, it is non-posting. And we're going to say, you can hover over and see the quantity pop-ups, what I have. So I'm going to bring in like 100 of this, and then we'll also bring in, 200 of these. Okay? For whatever reason. I mean, I can use the pop-up to make decisions here, or I can run reports. We'll look at those reports in a bit. So a $500 purchase order, right? This is non-posting. Now, you might copy to a bill. That's typical. I didn't do a payable in this case. I used a credit card to buy it off Amazon. So what I'm going to do is go to an expense. Now I could go to expenses or look at vendors. I could do transactions from here as well, as you know, or filter it just for open POs. I could do it from a report or from the PO itself, or look at a particular vendor. But I usually do the plus sign expense. And then we have Amazon. Notice the drawer is going to open up with open POs I have or a bill that I have to add. And we'll say it was with the Amex, right? American Express. And remember, account item detail. This is QBO Plus. The ability to, I might just be using, labor costs, or not labor costs, but like material costs, I should say, a cost of goods sold account. And then just put the items in the description. You can do that too in the account details. QBO Plus opens up this item detail tab on the expense, bill, or check, right? So you need Plus for that. I'm going to go ahead and bring over the October 2nd PO for $500. But in this case, I'm going to back order 100 gadgets. So I only received 100 for a reason, right? So I'm going to go back to the link transaction, right? Blue links, they take you back. Go to the purchase order, and you'll see that it closed the first line, but the other one's still open in what I received against. So we do partial receiving, okay? partial receiving. Now, before I go sell some stuff, some gadgets we'll say, there are price rules in QuickBooks Online. I believe it's just in Plus. You go there from the product services list, or all lists, more price rules. Now this is like price levels, okay? But it can impact the date range, which is nice. That's more like enterprise. And I can do a percent or amount, but when I turn price rules on, I want you to know this. This is also a key thing. Your clients will like this one. There is a field on the customer record in desktop called customer type. So you have a customer type list. You can create a bunch of types because you're kind of, what do I call it, compartmentalizing your customer base, right? Things like that. Like I have family, I have friends, or I have commercial, I have industrial, I have residential, I mean, you can use customer type for a range of things. When you turn price rules on, even if you're not going to use price rules, I can't imagine why a product-based business would not offer some discounts now and again. This customer type tab opens up in the customer list, right? So I have business individual, in another file I have dog lover, cat lover, So either way, customer type can be really helpful because when I go to price rules themselves, and I have this Beyond the Basics discount here, I can filter the discount. See, it's a date range. It's going from yesterday through the 8th, Columbus Day, call it Columbus Day discount. And I can do it for a particular customer type. Customer type's great because I can filter reports by it, but also I can create a price rule or a discount for a certain of my, exclusive to a certain type in my customer base. Mine's business individual. You might create a bunch of different types. It's just a type list, and then you go into every customer and assign them. So in this case, it's all customers that I'm doing, or I can select individual, and all inventory parts, right? By a percent, fixed amount, or custom price per item. So this is more like QuickBooks Premier price leveling, right? Is the price rules in QBO Plus. Pro just does a fixed percent. So this does custom price per item, etc. I'm just doing a percentage because that's typical, decrease by 25%, no rounding, apply, and then here's my adjusted price. It's going to, now on the 9th, it'll turn off. You can have several different price rules going, okay, depending. So I like this. If only, I've been showing this even in the service-based business workflow because of customer type is helpful for contractors, just so they can segment their customer base on reports, the list, even discounts, as you can see. But no doubt it would help with product-based businesses as well. So before we start selling stuff, then we'll look at reports, we'll look at cost of goods sold, we'll look at recurring transactions and recurring sales receipts, as well as the phone app, right, which will be the last thing that we'll look at today. Okay, so price rules, very important in QBO Plus, but I love the customer type feature because you can use it with almost anything. Because QBO only has so many lists and fields to filter reports by, right? Use whatever you can to get to the last report that your client really wants. And customer type is going to be one of them, even if you don't use price rules. So I received in 100 of the gadgets. We're going to focus on those. So if I go back to the product services list, notice I have no more low or out of stock, right? And if I filter by a particular category, in this case was, I think they were reselling items. For some reason I had that, something like that. So if we look at gadget and cold beer, right, quantity on hand, reorder point, pretty good. Good to go. Now I can sell. Also, from these item lists, if they're inventory, just know in the drop-down arrow, don't forget about the drop-down arrow. Here's where you can make them inactive. By the way, you can batch make items inactive in QBO Plus. I can run a quick report, see all the transactional activity against the item, duplicate it, adjust quantity or value, or reorder from here. Now the value, like in desktop where you're making a value adjustment, in QBO Plus this is not meant to be a periodic thing or something you do every week. This is like, oh, what do you put in the wrong cost a year ago? So I need to adjust the value and backdate it. Okay, that's what it's for. But it is its own transaction type and will show up on reports as a value adjustment. Okay. So don't forget the action column and the options in there as well. I'm going to go ahead and now just go to a sales receipt, and this will be ABC, and they're going to sell a gadget. Now that was in the category of reselling. So even if I start typing reselling, look, all the items within the reselling category pop up. Okay? So you can, if you have 1,000 items in a category, you might just type the category and then do a look, or you're probably going to just type the item itself, right? And let's say they bought 10 of these. Okay? Click Save. Notice under positive funds, it's not a default preference, so it does remain sticky, but on sales receipts or on the customer payment window against invoices, you want to hit under positive funds if you are grouping your payments into like a lump sum deposit, and you want it to match to the bank feed. This is important to point out, this deposit to field. It can be for really any type of business, but are they using under positive funds or not? Or a better question, do you want them to use it or not? And if so, make sure that's locked in. I wish there was a way to lock it in so they couldn't change it, but anybody could choose like checking, right? Something like that. I just typically leave it at under positive funds because when I go, when I look at the bank statement and it's clearing, there's a big deposit coming down from a bunch of payments. This has to match. It's just so much easier to match the bank feed as well as do reconciliations. So I typically put things in unpositive funds for that. If you're seeing a lot of singular payments received, singular amounts in the checking account, they should be grouped. It's probably because the deposit to field on either the customer payment window or the sales receipt says checking, right? So similar here, if we go to receive payment, of course, receiving payment against invoices, and you're talking about, I think this one probably has some invoices yet. Yeah, under positive funds, same field. You want to train them on that for sure. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And again, I have the sales rep. I could put on more custom fields if I want, but I want to prove something to you. When you're on a saved transaction, the More tab, this is where you'll find copy, void, delete. As you know, you already know that. But the transaction journal report. This shows what's being debited and credited. And it should always balance, and it usually does. I've never seen it not. But I have, under positive funds debited, right? And then I have cost of goods sold debited because inventory parts, COGS are debited when you sell it. And then I have asset credited, right? So all this is typical. But sometimes it's nice to know what happened behind the scenes. Right? And that's a great way to prove COGS and the first in, first out valuation method that's being used. You can drill into it itself and it'll just show some, the transaction that we were just on. Or you can go into the P&L and drill into the COGS account. But FIFO is going to be, what was the cost of it when I bought it, So we do that calculation for you. Okay, speaking of which, let's look at reporting around items. And some of my personal favorite reports to use. I'll show you an item profitability report, but if you scroll down, who owes me? So I have aging reports, etc., customer balance detail. This one, invoiced and received payments, it's new. This shows me, if you have a product-based business that wants to see, okay, here was the payment that I received on 8/7/18 or entered it, what invoices did it pay off? Okay, and it paid off, these invoices. Here's the payment, here's the invoices. This you used to have to send 2 reports in Excel and it would take hours to create, right? So within each customer, okay, looking at year-to-date here. The other report that's similar to that, but on the payable side, when you go to what you owe, there's a bill and applied payments report. Here's the bill payment check, what bills did it pay off? Super helpful. These are reports that have come in recently, right, new to QBO. So there's that. Now, under sales and customers is where you're going to find your item detail reporting as well as sales reporting and valuation. So I have a valuation summary report, I have the detail report, We'll look at month to date. We can even filter it by today because we did some stuff today. Now, I can group by not much. There's not a whole lot of customization even when I filter. It's basically a product and services and service date, which can help, right? That service date column, it's a setting you turn on. Some people will use that to filter this type of report and a couple others. Can be helpful if your product-based business is also offering services. So there's that too. But if we scroll down, we have the information around the gadget and the cold beer, right? So we have, and the transactions that are associated with it. So here's the expense, inventory quantity adjustment we did, expense, sales receipt, and notice the FIFO cost column. As I scroll down, yeah, that's fine. You have a FIFO cost column, quantity on hand, and the asset value. So not much I can do to the report as far as, you know, columns. I mean, I could turn on and off some other things. You could add a sales rep here, a tracking number, because there is a way to track shipping, though it's not embedded with like a, or integrated with FedEx or UPS. I can still track it. You know, it just opens up fields to track things on. So there's that too, and that's also a setting. And so you have other columns. The summary report is just going to be a summary, and there's not a lot of customization there. However, with the sales reporting, I have sales by customer detail or sales by product and service detail. I find this report to be really helpful. Of course, it opens in expanded mode, so I have to collapse it. But it just gives me the customers and then the items that were sold to them. And of course, on the detail report, you have a range of columns that you can impact for data, including the sales rep and the other custom fields, the 3 custom fields that you might have on an invoice or sales receipt, because this report is going to pull from an invoice and sales receipt alone and all the items that were sold on it. Okay, so you can do a lot with the 3 custom fields and filter this report by that. So this is a helpful report right here. Sales, product, service detail, sales by customer detail will be very similar as well. I just wish they opened or had a collapse expand option. They don't. Okay. Inventory valuation detail, sales by customer as well. And then I told you about the profit and loss. While there's no specific profit and loss by item report, I can go to the P&L and look at, this is opening this year to date. We'll just say it's this month, and I'm going to customize it, filter by product and service. Now I can look at categories. So I could look at the total of all, you know, the P&L of all guitars, P&L by guitars. Let me see, all dates, and then we'll do by products and services loan report. Yeah. So you can do a P&L by item as well, item profitability, and then you just click the little pencil icon and call it item profitability report. You know, colon guitar, you know, guitar category. And you want to save the customization, right? Add it to a group, maybe to auto send or whatever. These are key operational reports or something. Share with firm only or all users, either way. So that's an item profitability report. Oh, it's because I have a colon in here. Sorry. That's why. Yep. Okay, good. It should let me save it now. So anyway, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can do item profitability reports as well. Okay. So we'll go back to reports and when you find the reports that your client really wants, like they might also want under expenses and vendors, some of the open purchase order list report, purchase order detail, great reports, transaction list by vendor, all key. Star them. When you favorite them, it puts them up in the top section. Right? Why is that not keeping? Keep. There we go. So they're in the favorites. And then you can just open the report from here. I'm not sure why that didn't work out. Interesting. So I try to favorite them as much as possible. And that's some related reporting. Remember, detail reports, you have the ability to add more columns, filter reports by them better than just the summary reports, but you can do a P&L by item profitability report for sure. All right, now, key for product-based businesses, recurring transactions. they're going to be doing some invoicing. Know that when you edit this invoice here, you're creating a template, right? But the nice thing, monthly, this will go out because they purchase the same items. Like I could see someone who, like a coffee roaster, right? This would be great. They do some online invoicing, and someone just purchases. I mean, they're probably using sales receipts though, so invoicing still. I'm trying to think of a good example for invoicing, but let's just say monthly it goes out for everything they buy, and they have a terms of due on receipt or net 15 or something. Automatically send email. Include unbilled activity, right? So if I happen to do any repair or maintenance or services, I don't want to forget to charge this customer for it. So this will include any unbilled activity, anywhere I tag this customer, and include unbilled activity, and enter every month, right? Now, I'm going to dive into a different client file because you can do recurring transactions for anything, expenses, bills, journal entries, whatever. It's more about what can't you do a recurring template for. Paycheck, receive payment, unless it's a sales receipt, and bill payment check. All of the transaction types you can do you can make recurring. If you're used to desktop, we call it memorized transactions. So it's recurring transactions here. So I'm going to go into Friends QBOA because they have a client that has QuickBooks Payments turned on. And this will be important because your product-based businesses are still going to offer some services. They're going to offer some monthly subscriptions or dues for the items they purchase, something like that. And this is how they could set it up. QuickBooks Payments is free. It's a preference. Literally a setting. It's its own setting called Payments under Gear Icon, Account and Settings. The business owner will put in their bank and routing, they'll fill out the appropriate info, get approved, whatever, and then it's on. And then you can offer for my customer base to pay me by credit card, which has fees, or ACH, which is totally free. So I don't think I've turned it on in this client yet. Account and Settings under the gear icon, you go to Payments, we apply for them so you can just see the fees there. All right, so these are the credit card fees. No monthly fee, and then bank transfers are free. Takes 5 days to fund, but it's better than AR cycle. If you're just doing a sales receipt, then I'll show you. I'll show you what happens. So I'm going to go into Sean's QBOA. He has a client that has payments turned on, and it's a product-based business. This client sells drone components. Now, I won't show you the payments setting because it's actually a personal file, but let's go to recurring transactions under the gear icon. You're setting it up for expense stuff or rent or bills and things like that. But this is what I would do for every single customer that agrees to pay me this way. You can do this yourself as a firm using the Your Books file. You can set up recurring sales receipts. This totally bypasses accounts receivable. There's no need for this. This would be some monthly due or something, or some payment, whatever, for a particular customer. Automatically send the email. So they're going to get the sales receipt every, third of the month. And then we're going to start tomorrow. No end date. Now, put in this billing address, etc. When I choose ACH, it opens up and loads this bank info. Right? Put in the account and routing number, the account type, phone number, name, and you have signed authorization. And we'll wait for it to load. But I could go ahead and sell something periodically or monthly to Sean. I'll print this out. Because in QBO, there's doc attach, right? I can attach documents to customers, vendors, and transactions. And under the gear icon, there's an attachments list. It's like in the third column on the left. So I can attach this to Sean and just have this is PCI compliance. I have his approval to bill him monthly, right? There's even a script you can read over the phone, what have you, and you save the information for next time. So this sales receipt is going to go out every third, and I will see it 5 business days later in my bank account. So that's a recurring sales receipt, getting paid in a recurring way. I see it for service-based businesses a lot. This would be great for pool cleaners, landscapers, anything where there's a monthly service or fee, whatever. But product-based too, I'm sure. Monthly repairing, monthly stuff people are buying. Why do accounts receivable? I mean, I show invoice because I know you still have customers that are product-based that are still invoicing. Maybe they have heavier machinery or equipment or something like that. So they're still invoicing or whatever. They're still accounts receivable. But there's this move just towards more of just automating getting paid for particularly services. So I just want to make sure you knew about that. And that's payments that you can turn on for yourself in the Your Books file if you already adopted that, like Firm of the Future, if you will, for your own services and items you sell your own clients. But you definitely have your customers set up on some of that. Set up a recurring sales receipt with payments on. Automate getting paid. Now, I'm going to show the phone app. See here. Let me sign in real quick. Yeah, I guess I'm already in. Because even though I guess it would be service-based, but what can you sell while you're out there using your phone or the iPad? Like say they go to a farmer's market or a conference or something like that, and they're just selling some stuff. I'm in the QBO file. Hopefully you're all able to see this. I'm in the QBO file. I have dashboard, I have my activity, so all the transactions, just kind of as I'm going, as they've been entered. If you click plus on the bottom, here's the transactions that are supported, and they are heavy on the sales side. There's one expense where I can take a picture of expense and have it added to the books with the receipt attached, but there's also a sales receipt, an invoice, even an estimate, a bank deposit, and taking a payment. So I can literally take a payment against a particular invoice, if you will. And we'll say we have the 1601 going undeposited funds, and it's paying off, this invoice. We'll leave 1024, 1020. We'll just say it's paying off this invoice. Now, if I have GoPayment, I could swipe a card or put in the reader now has the chip, and it could download those later. It's going undeposited funds. Payment method was, a Visa or something, right, or an EFT or something like that, or an e-check, something like that, right? So I can click Save. This is receiving the payments against an invoice. So I can do that on the phone if I'm out visiting one of my customers. Right, and that's for an invoice. I might just do for them a sales receipt, right, and enter all the activity for what I did. And then with GoPayment, it would integrate. I don't have GoPayment. That would be cool to show, but you literally swipe the card. Some of your product-based businesses are going to be out doing stuff like HVAC, et cetera. And then I could invite someone who has customer sales activity to then view the products and services list, enter a note or an attachment to a customer. Look at a customer, all my customers. They're probably not doing the online banking, but chart of accounts, which you can't add, but I can view, and I can even do an expense, and then you have the sales transactions. So not the same feature set as in the browser, but for product-based, I can certainly add items from here, and I can view them and even search them. Right? And there's the particular guild we had. This is the item list. And then I can go ahead and sell that. Just from my phone. I mean, I'm actually in the QBO file. And the best, though I don't think I have a receipt anymore, I can take a picture, of a particular receipt, which I don't have, but you could take a picture and then just call it, it was a credit card expense, $50. Who did we pay, etc. I took them out to lunch. Who was it for? I can make it billable, we'll pass it through, right? And you can even take a picture of the receipt, right? Or choose an existing photo. Do I even have one? Nah, I don't think so. Anyway, you can take a picture just so you can see, right? And then you just kind of look at the receipt, take a picture of it, and attach. It comes in as a doc attach itself into the file with the receipt attached. Sorry I didn't have typically have a gas expense or something. But if I look at, if we go to an expense in a vendor, and I look at the gas station, because I was doing this yesterday or the day before, gas station, look at the transactions, this expense here. Yeah, we did this on the first. Say the receipt's attached. I took a picture from the actual phone. That's what it looked like, right? So doc attach at the expense level. And remember, all my documents under the gear icon, I have attachments. You can attach to customer, vendor, and transactions, right? So That's, multiple use cases for that. But it's almost like if you don't have a document attached anymore, it never happened in product. So you can do that with QBO Plus and both Essentials and Plus as well. But with product-based business, you're doing Plus because of you're selling items, reselling, inventory, etc. Now, didn't show the sales tax. If you want to hang on, because I wanted to show the phone, just that you can do that for product-based businesses. If you want to hang on, remember at the item level, we had, because there's a new auto calculation of sales tax now. It's different from what you're used to. You might have some clients already using it, and certainly if you sign up a client new to QBO, they're going to have that too. But at the item level itself, and we'll just go into a widget here that I'm selling or an appliance. If it's taxable, you're going to be asked for the category and what you sell. And based on the business address and actually the address of the customer buying, that's what we use to calculate the sales tax. So if I go to taxes, sales tax, you'll see everything that I have coming due in red, and then I have my, due this month, etc. So I can go pay it by clicking view return and go pay it there. But sales tax settings are the items I'm setting up, right? So you just add an agency, and then the filing frequency and the start date, okay? And then notice you're not creating the items anymore or the percentages. The app that we partner with that's built into this module does it for you. So when I go to a sales receipt or an invoice, I just want to show you in case you haven't seen it. You'll set it up in the taxes on the left in the panel, and that's where you go pay it to by clicking view return. But let's say Natasha, who's in Boulder, and I sell her a particular appliance. We'll say like I'll sell her 5 of them. Notice the sales tax is still black, 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 but eventually it's going to go blue, and then how did it calculate $40 against 1,000? And then it'll break it down for me. Business address, customer address, and the item categories. And this is Colorado. So, and there's the same 3 reports, right? But we're actually automating the sales tax calculation, and the reports are all accrual basis at this time, just so you know.